I unpack the surging violence in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo between the army and the Rwandan-backed M23 Tutsi-led rebels with political commentator Joseph Ochieno, who joined me from the Ugandan capital, Kampala. Let's take a listen. Joseph, thank you so much for speaking to us on Africa Today. I suppose the best place to start when we look at the conflict in the DRC is the beginning. How did this conflict start, and how have we arrived to where we are today?
Extremely sad, this conflict in DR Congo. If I look back to 2 decades ago, I was, a young activist looking at Southern Africa, and we thought the big war then was the war in Angola, and once that was ended, that would be a new continent post-apartheid, post the Cold War. But unfortunately for DR Congo, a country that has been in conflict since nearly independence in the 60s, this particular one you could sort of say was linked to the, if you like, the Rwanda-Ugandan war that saw the RPF take over the government in Rwanda, that led to the genocide in Rwanda. Beyond that, and during that, a number of Rwanda refugees, predominantly Hutu, fled into DR Congo. Turns out that DR Congo has got a substantial population, in fact, a sub-region, which is occupied by ethnic Tutsi in Congo. So really, to make this short, as a result of that, President Kagame continuously sought to, if you like, to follow up, chase, if you like, the language he uses, and to chase up to the predominantly Hutu refugees in Congo, whom they always continuously accused of participating in genocide in Rwanda. Fast forward to that element of the conflict in Congo was this creation then where, the 1997 or thereabout, when Uganda, Rwanda, and indeed some SADC member states participated in getting rid of Mobutu in Congo. What happened was that an installation of a new regime in Congo. Part of the regime, particularly that led to the now Kabila II. A number of Congolese see Kabila II as part of ethnic Tutsi, and hence the idea that Uganda and Rwanda wanted to occupy, in fact, effectively control Congo. That amplified a conflict that had started with, a conflict and instability in the country that had been going on since really around independence. But fast forward to where we are today. Where we are today is this M23 rebel group, which is predominantly Tutsi rebels in Congo. That are Congolese predominantly, but who see themselves as marginalized and who want really claiming to seize power in Congo, but would appear strategically seeking to control a major oil region which is centered around Goma. But at the same time, and I was telling someone else, if they don't win, and take over Kinshasa, they would rather just be content being a regional government in Eastern DR Congo, so long as they control the main reach. Unfortunately, as it happens, the allegations are that Rwanda and Uganda have been backing this rebel group, and possibly with some evidence. And on the other, the Rwandese government continues to accuse the Congolese authorities of supporting a predominantly Hutu rebels settled in Congo, just as I gave you the background. That really technically is the background to this very unfortunate conflict. But beyond that has been the continuous plunder of Congo since really before independence, where most of Congo has been ungovernable. Most of the resources in Congo, the richest country on the continent, continues to be, plundered by neighbors, but particularly also led by predominantly companies and individuals from global north who are not necessarily African.
So if this plunder of the DRC or support of the M23 rebels by Rwanda and Uganda, as you say, is so blatant, where is the rest of the world while this is happening? Where is Africa? And I think it's only now that the United States, I think in the last few days, has called out Rwanda and Congo and said, guys, get your act together.
I think that's a very important question. When I was earlier talking about our focus in Southern Africa, those days, the Angolan conflicts, as well as those days, conflicts in Congo was continuing. most of Eastern Congo, women and children were being raped. Instability continued there. You can actually say Congo's conflict has been amongst the most forgotten conflicts in the world, and particularly the African continent has actually been a shame. I have been, and many of us have written and have been very critical about the irresponsibility of the African Union, irresponsibility of African governments, but of course also irresponsibility of the global community. But part of the reason has been really because Rwanda and Uganda for a very long time have been the darlings of the West, where they never went wrong on anything African wherever they put their fingers. But it has also been suggested that both regimes, have also been, if you like, extensions to particularly Western influences that seek to continue to plunder and to exploit resources in Congo. But of course, Uganda and Rwanda, both of them are very strategic allies to Western powers, particularly led by the US and Britain. So for that matter, for a very long time, they're untouchables. Uganda has sort of pulled back a little bit in a way by building some kind of diplomatic, soft power relations with Congo as it continues is part of this deal. Ironically, when about 10 or so years ago, there was a ceasefire between this particular group of rebels and the Congolese administration. Most of these rebels were resettled in Uganda, and people have always been asking, these guys got resettled in Uganda as part of an arrangement of some sort. How did they sneak out of Uganda to found themselves either back into Congo, into some other establishments where they now continue again to cause havoc? Not many observers like yourselves have asked the Ugandan authorities this question, nor have they asked the East African authorities this question, nor indeed for that matter the African Union.
So let's take a look at the interests of geopolitics. I mean, let's bring in the superpowers. The United States, the French. What is their involvement? What is their interest in all of this? I mean, why is the United States only raising their hand now to say stop this or else? Why not any earlier?
I think I gave you part of the historical context. The United States would possibly be amongst the last to seek to have interest in the settlement in Congo, because the United States and Belgium were really the earliest guys responsible for causing instability. Remember, the first independence Prime Minister of Congo, Patrice Lumumba, the big name, was assassinated, with the tacit support of the U.S. and Belgium authorities. That is an official and open thing. Unfortunately, I think both Belgium and the U.S. have not really come clean on this to talk reparations in Congo. But as I said, beyond that, as Mobutu came, Mobutu and Kamuzu Banda, in fact, I can tell you, were really the two nearest darlings to the West and the only two obvious and apparent guys who were clearly not on the side of other African leaders in the fight against apartheid. So Congo, Zaire was then the satellite states for backers of the Boer regimes when the rest of Africa, led then by Milton Obote, Julius Nyerere, and Kenneth Kaunda, were part of the frontline states fighting for liberation of Southern Africa. So these are the old guys. So they come that big. So Congo was the state. But beyond that, under that, is this huge amount of resources in Congo: gold, platinum, and tungsten, and talk about it. Each and every other item you can think globally, including equipments that help set up the systems that make it now possible for you and me to communicate via television, me possibly using my domestic studio rather than a formal studio somewhere. All that comes from Congo. So no, the interest has been strategically, economical, historically, and then of course in more recent times has been political. So it hasn't really been in the interest of America or indeed the West to raise fingers on it. But interestingly, more recently, Belgium, France, and I think Germany, amongst the EU member states, have actually raised voices now backed by the US. Ironically, as it happens, the country that normally would be backing Uganda or coming down Uganda and the best friends of Rwanda is the United Kingdom, Britain. And I was just looking through the other day how Britain now becomes the silent member. But why? Because Britain has attempted to have a specific special relationship on repatriation of refugees from Britain into Rwanda. So basically, they're basically using these African leaders as frontmen. Milton would call them nyampalas, meaning basically head men to serve a particular, in this case, political and or in many cases, a very, very economic interest, unfortunately.